And welcome to the Irish Craft Beer Show. My name is Brian Condren, just me today, and I'm here today to talk about fermentation temperature control, and temperature control in general. But first, what am I drinking? This is the latest batch of beer I've done. This is an Irish Red Ale, which I brewed to enter into this year's National Homebrew Championships competition. It's it's okay. It's not the greatest beer I've ever done, but at the end of the day, it's only an Irish Red, and you're not going to be punched in the face with a load of hops from an Irish Red. It is what it is, and I think I've done all right with recreating it. So what's in it? Base malt was Irish Pale Ale malt made by Minch, 1 kilogram of Vienna malt, and 200 grams of medium crystal malt, 120 EBC. Hops of Styrian Goldings bittering hops at 30 grams at 60 minutes, and 20 grams of East Kent Goldings at 15 minutes, just to give it a little bit of flavour. Interesting thing I did with this now to get this nice red colour, I added roasted barley, not to the mash. I steeped it at 70 degrees in water, 70 degrees for 15 minutes. And then I added that to the boil, just as the boil is about to take off. So I think it has worked. It's given it, I don't know if this comes out in camera, but it's given it a nice golden colour. I've seen darker Irish Reds, as my erstwhile co-host John Craddock always calls them, the Irish Maroon Ale. But I think this falls in well within the category style. And it tastes all right too. Now this fermented about 6 weeks ago, right in the middle of the Irish winter, when it did get quite cold. Temperatures were below zero outside. I'm currently fermenting in my kitchen, which room temperature, we tried to keep it around 16, 17 degrees room temperature. Fermenter was wrapped in a fleece, which means I'd say the fermentation temperature, anytime we measured it, was around 19 degrees. Where I think it did fall apart a bit was at night time. We turned the heating off, there's nobody here all day, temperature drops a bit, so there was a little bit of variation in the temperature. But I don't, until this time, have ever used temperature control, and I have noticed when I go to homebrew meetings a bit of a difference between those of us who don't use temperature control and more consistent quality of people who do. So I decided now is time to actually, take the plunge, invest, and start coming up with a system for temperature control. So sent off to eBay, and I pulled up what I'd say is the international standard in temperature control for homebrewers in STC 1000. Today I'm going to figure out how I'm going to incorporate it into my brewing system and wire it up. Let's go. STC 1000. Got a couple of extension leads. This will be what powers the heat source and the cold source. My heat source is my trusty brew belt. Cold source, not here yet, will be a fridge. It's still middle of February here, still cold outside. I reckon at the moment the cold source is less important. Heat source is needed to keep the temperature constant. Cold source less important. Later on, as we move into summer, cold source will be more important, so I'll have the fridge sorted out then. Maybe in a future episode of the Irish Craft Beer Show, we'll see. I plan to, this is an old enclosure for an external hard disk, so I plan to attach the temperature controller so that the face of this comes to the front. At the back we'll have our wires for our temperature probe, our power source, and the heat and cold source powers. Hopefully it'll all work out inside this little box. So a few essentials I brought: a drill, power connector strip, some cable ties, and my trusty screwdriver. So in the middle of a brew day here, I'll be coming to and from this while I'm brewing, but let's get started. Well, I've been Googling for how to do this. I found a wiring diagram. So it looks to match pretty much what we have here. The power supply will be the leftmost two terminals. The second two terminals, the probe is already connected there. Third two terminals for the heater, and the fourth two for cooling. So I think the first thing to do is to just lay everything out as I expect it to be inside the box, and then we can cut the wires to size.
I'd already cut to size some brown live wires and blue neutral wires, all left over from a spare power cord from a long departed appliance. See, Elizabeth, I was right to keep it. Probably from a VCR originally. It's been living in my stuff drawer ever since. Everyone does stuff drawer, right? It's not just me that's a hoarder. Nah, can't be. The enclosure was from an external hard drive that stopped working way back in 2011 when it fell off a desk. I kept it anyway. Magnets from that hard drive will be soon enough used to keep the drip tray and my kegerator in place. So if there's one lesson to take from this episode of the ICBS show, it's never ever throw anything out. Cutting out a hole in the enclosure for the temp controller panel should be a simple job if you possess a Dremel tool. I don't, so it was a long and laborious process using just a drill bit and a Stanley knife. Holes in the four corners and centre, then cut out between until the panel fell out, and then some sanding off of sharp edges. Very satisfying when it was done though.
Okay, well, it's gotten slightly darker. Just preparing my project box for this took a little longer than I expected, and of course I'm brewing at the same time. So lights on now, sun is set. Hopefully there's enough light and you can see this, and yeah, give this a go. Okay, so I have 3 earth wires and 1 neutral wire. Now, attach them into here. So, leftmost is neutral, and the rest we need to wire in an earth wire. So, neutral first. So, I have trimmed the ends that are supposed to go into the temperature controller, so they're quite smaller. So, let's do this now. First thing first, we're going with the neutral. The temperature probe actually came already pre-wired in, so that's fine. If we look at the diagram here, I'll probably flash it up on screen, but then you have to look at my tablet. You can see that pins 5 and 7. I shall put these wires to, and then pins 6 and 8 shall be the actual connectors to the hot and cold sources, the heat source and cool source. So pin 5, these guys. And pin 7. Okay, so now all I have to do is add in the heating and the cooling circuits. So I'll just pre-open them so they're ready. So first things first, I've marked this one hot, so I'm going to attach this to the heating circuit. Okay, that's in. Tighten it. And finally, the cold first. And that's in there, and this is now a mess of wires. And I can also see that my boil is finished, so back to the brew day. Right, the more observant amongst you may have spotted that when I first attached the hot and cold heat sources to the temperature controller, I'd forgotten to put it through the holes in the container casing. But anyway, fixed now. Okay, I'm back, and I'm pretty much done, nearly there. Unfortunately, I hit 1 or 2 little snags along the way. The first one was that the STC1000 came with these nice little handy clips, which should prevent it from moving around inside the container that you use for it. Unfortunately, the hard disk container that I used just isn't big enough, so these don't fit when I try to put the lid on. So what should happen is these clips hold it in here so that this doesn't slide in or out. I can't really do that now, so I'm thinking I've just got some electrical tape. So I'm going to try and just tape it down with the electrical tape so that it doesn't move around here. Everything else, it's all completely wired up now. Again, I'm going to use the electrical tape to slide it, just to hold it down so that things don't slide around in there. I've added these cable ties here so that it prevents you from being able to tug on the wires and have you pull the wires out of it. Just a little bit of safety thing. And I also bought a little rubber grommet for the temperature probe. This little black thing right here, just so in case, because the temperature probe, it's a smaller wire. Like these power cables, they're big, heavy duty cables. They can rub against the edge, whereas the temperature probe is a little wire, and I'm afraid of rubbing against the edge of the box and having it rub out and break, whatever. Anyway, that's it, pretty much done. I'm just going to tape it down I will put the lid back on and then we'll be ready to go. So, all done. The fruits of my labour, what I've been spent the entire day working today. There we are, one Western Digital hard drive box that has been sitting up in the attic for a long time now, being repurposed, whole new lease of life. So temperature controller, there's the panel there in front, and then all the little tentacles coming out of the back. We've got our socket for the heat source, socket for the cold source, the fridge, got the temperature probe, and of course we have the power socket. So anyway, while doing this today, I have been brewing a batch of foreign extra stout that is now put in the fermenter. Let's go and set up the temperature controller. I have plugged it in, and what do you know? We have a display, and apparently it's 17.8 degrees in my room right now. Check if the temperature is working. If you just pinch it, the temperature probe is working. Just pinch it, and it's reading my body temperature now, and as you can see, it's shooting way up. Now, I need to test this, if it's working. So I've just got a normal little light, and I'm going to plug it into the heat source. Hot. Okay. It's not doing anything at the moment. You can see the light here is flashing beside the word cool because it has recognized that it's hotter than whatever the preset temperature was. And it's getting ready to start to cool the cooling system, which is normally a refrigerator. So waits a little while to make sure the temperature isn't just fluctuating up and down, just to save the motor on the fridge. So right now it knows that the temperature is hotter than whatever temperature has been set for this, and it is waiting to see if it's going to stabilize before kicking in the motor. Now to program this, press and hold the S button. That's one. So I can see that it's already been set for 19 degrees as the required temperature, which suits me down to a T because that's the temperature I want my beer to ferment at. With a variance of plus or minus half a degree Celsius. There is a 3-minute wait to hit in the cool to start the refrigerator motor. And this last one is just for calibrating the temperature. I'll do that again, not for this video. Okay, so right now it is just turned on the cooling system. If I just plugged into the cooling plug, the light would now be on. I want to demonstrate the heat works because that's what I care about today. So to make the heat work, I need to bring this temperature down to below 19 degrees. This should do it. Glass of water, if I just stick the probe into the glass of water. Yeah, rapidly going down. And the light is on. Once it went down below the 19 degrees, or plus or minus the half degrees, just turned on the light. If I take this out and it warms up, it should warm up in the air. Or I can just warm it up like this again. And once it gets above 19 degrees, and once again, the light goes off. So that worked perfectly. I think we're ready. So here's today's batch of beer, all ready to ferment. I don't like actually putting the temperature probe into the beer. So what I've done is I've taken this little piece of bubble wrap and I have stuck it onto the side of the fermenter with duct tape. So then I can just stick the temperature probe in there, and hopefully it should tell me what temperature the beer is. Right now it's saying it's 18.3 degrees, 18.6. That's quite good. That's close enough to where we want it. So let's just set this up. As my heat source, I use this little heat belt. You plug it in, it just gives a small bit of heat, wrap it around the fermenter, and it should just add enough to keep it at the required temperature. So it around here, and I'll just tie this up, and that is, as I say, that. Get my heat belt and I'll plug it into the plug marked hot. Hot, that is correct. And now hopefully anything that goes under 19 degrees, the heat belt will switch on. Usually I would wrap it in a fleece just to keep it at the correct temperature. Because I'm doing something new, I'm just going to monitor the temperature for a little bit, because right now it is 21 degrees. Actually higher than what's needed, but we'll see what happens there. So I'm just going to monitor it for a few hours and see if I actually need to put the fleece on. But apart from that, thank you very much for watching. I hope you've learned something, and before I go, I'm just going to have a quick experiment with a temperature of conditioning beer. We'll take a look at that now.
Okay, so we spent the first part of this episode talking about fermentation temperature control. Now I carried out a little experiment myself to see how conditioning temperature control changes the taste of a beer and other stuff as well. I brewed an American Pale Ale a few weeks ago. Pretty simple recipe, just base malt, crystal malts and summit and citra. On bottling day, one bottle I put directly into the fridge. The other bottle I left stored in a spare room, wardrobe in a spare room, for a few weeks. And now I've decided to open both of them and see if there's any discernible differences. The first thing I'll say is they both have nice clarity, they both have come up quite clear. This version here is the one that was stored at room temperature in a spare room. You'll notice this is a much bigger head. In fact, this took a few times to pour it to actually get enough to drink out of it. Now I did put it into the fridge about 2 hours ago to let it cool down for this test, but definitely it's more carbonated, and just from looking at it, I would say that there are more bubbles and they seem bigger on this one than this. So that's how they look. They both look good. The truth is in the tasting, as they say. So aroma, I can definitely, it's all citra. Yeah, I'm a big fan of citra, and this was a very citra heavy beer, and it's not belying its ingredients, as I can say. No, but that is actually really good. This is just pure out and out citra beer. Funnily enough, I'd say it's probably slightly over-carbonated, but the good backbone there. It's not too malty. I don't like my American Pale Ales to be too malty, so it's just right. You know, the base malt is there, but the hops really come through, which I am quite impressed, because it is about 6-7 weeks since I brewed it, so it's still very, very fresh hop taste. Slight grassiness. I did notice that in other bottles of this beer that I drank before, so that's probably just a problem with the recipe rather than anything else. But this is very clean, and it's gotten a bit of condensation, but that is very clear. That's as clear a beer as I've brewed. I'm very happy with this. Now, like I said, the exact same beer, bottled the exact same time. This has just spent about 7 weeks conditioning in room temperature. So the good head retention anyway. It's this one still a nice fluffy head retention as well. This is much more of a head, but I have to say there's not really that much difference in the aroma. They both smell very similar. Wow. Yeah, it's obviously the same beer. This tastes like it's an older batch. The citra is a lot more understated. Let's do side by side there. I probably should have had this one first and the other one, but yeah, definitely. The hops in this are much more in your face, whereas this, it tastes like a different. It probably tastes like a less hoppier version of the same beer, if anything. Yeah. Now, this would still. I have had other glasses of this. I've considered this a good beer, but this one bottle that has been in the fridge for the 6 weeks, this is definitely. It's a much better beer than this. So, room temperature. I kept it in the spare room, which we don't use. So I'd say. Maybe it ranges from 12 degrees overnight till maybe 16, 17 degrees during the day. It's a room that doesn't have direct sunlight going into it, so it shouldn't heat up too much, but still
I did never expect it to be this much difference between them. This tastes like a fresher beer. Just normal fridge temperature. Bottled it. About, I believe it was 7 weeks ago. I left it one night out of the fridge just to give the carbonation a chance to occur, and then it's been sitting in the fridge, taking up space ever since. And wow, I honestly, I didn't expect there to be that much of a difference. This is so much a hoppier beer than this. So there you go. If you have the fridge space, keep a few bottles of your favourite hoppy beers carbonating or conditioning in there for a while, and 6 or 7 weeks later, you'll thank me. Well, thank you very much for watching this episode of the Irish Craft Beer Show. I hope you learned something, and cheers! Excellent. Okay.